Hello and welcome back to the Comic Literate podcast, the podcast that does deep dives into the best of comic books, graphic novels, mangas, penny dreadfuls, webcomics, newspaper comics, essentially any single frame illustrations where the characters use bubbles to talk or think. I'm your host, the soon-to-be known as Comic Stan, and with me as always is my voluble co-host, it's Jamie.
Wondering when voluble was going to come up.
I've got my list and you've got yours, and when we match them up, we'll have like a bingo round or something.
Yeah.
How does bingo work? I don't know. I've never played
That's a bingo.
It's Inglourious Bastards is my only reference. That's when you know you're a true cinephile. It's like bingo is in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, that's that game from Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, I only recognize basketball from Space Jam. That's my only reference to that.
I didn't think you liked Space Jam.
Space Jam 1 was awesome. I mean, I was a kid when I saw it, so I probably got a distorted opinion of it. And as we all know, Space Jam 2 was a failure of a cash grab.
Yeah, didn't it have LeBron James in
yes,
it?
It had everyone. Everyone who Warner Brothers owns the rights to, plus LeBron James and Don Cheadle for some reason. Don Cheadle's awesome. He's a laugh. He's a laugh. Right. This is the worst way to start off an episode, which I said up top. We're going to try and fit into a tight hour, just to see if we can. Two, we're both quite busy this week, so we're trying to see if we can get one in very quickly. So very quick, brief start off. Sad news. Normally wouldn't want to do it this quickly, but it's also a creator who I don't think either of us know much about or from, but just felt enough to mention anyway. But unfortunately, I'm going to butcher his name, which I hate doing, but it's a manga creator. By the way, this will be 2 months after he's passed, so everyone will be a bit more okay with it by then, but we're still mentioning it now. Manga creator Leiji Matsumoto passed away at 85. He was, I think, most well known for us because he did the Daft Punk videos, or he did some Daft Punk videos.
Oh, that's cool.
The animation for that. Did the Daft Punk videos most notably, or other notable works, which unfortunately I don't recognize, but I would like to check out someday, are Space Pirate Captain Harlock, Galaxy Express 999, and Queen Emeralds. By all accounts, he was very popular. A lot of the comments I saw said that people loved his work, read them in high school, that kind of stuff. So, shame.
Talk about him on Manga Week.
Exactly. Manga Week, Manga Month. That'll be the...
Should we do a Manga Month?
We'll do a Manga Month at some point for sure, yeah. So, quick, tight hour. Let's go. The reason we're doing a small episode this week is because, unfortunately, this is arguably worse news for those in the know of this series. We had a bit of a major... fuck up for lack of a better word last week's episode. And it's the first episode in 8 episodes.
9, I think.
8 or 9. First episode ever of this series in its short run that we did not mention Alan Moore.
I know, he just didn't get a look in, did he? And there was a perfect opportunity to mention him. It could have been the Alan Moore episode.
I literally, before the episode, I made a mental note. I was like, we were talking about, for anyone who didn't listen, we were talking about Public Domain, and it's about a superhero creator getting screwed out of the rights to the superhero character they wrote the comic for.
Yeah.
Which is literally Alan Moore's like core concept as a person.
It's his character arc over the past 30 years, isn't it?
Exactly. So it was only afterwards you mentioned we didn't talk about Alan Moore, and I went, oh, it was the perfect time.
And so today we are dedicating yet another full episode to Alan Moore.
This is his first full episode.
Is it?
Yeah, we haven't done any Alan Moore titles as of yet. But what's also interesting is Alan Moore's probably one of the most talked...
Is the League of Gentlemen not?
Oh, of course. Yeah, we did do League of Gentlemen, yeah. All right, so this is his second full episode.
Yeah, this is the second Alan Moore.
Yes, and because most of his works being so prolific and acclaimed, most of them have already been talked to death already.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd go a bit of a slightly different route, and what we're going to be doing, rather than your typical run-of-the-mill Watchmen or your From Hell or your... Swamp Thing, all those other ones, we are doing his short issue run for Superman that released back in 1985.
From the neon-coloured 1980s comes Alan Moore's Superman.
Boy, is it a colourful time for comics.
It's a colourful comic as well.
It's the most colours I've ever seen Batman in, except for that one time he had the multicolour suit to fight a supervillain that had multicolour powers.
I was having a bad day when I opened this comic book, and I kind of went, oh my god, Like
my eyes.
yeah, it's so brightly coloured, but also like a bit faded and a bit stilted because it's from the 80s, but also it's a very strange dichotomy.
It is an interesting read for only being used to modern comics. I've read very few older comics. Like, oldest I probably go to is maybe like the 90s.
Yeah.
And this is at least like maybe mid-90s. So this is a decade before what I'm used to in terms of comics. So it was an interesting experience to go that way. So the details of the comic. Now, what we were going to do, but we didn't in the end, was what do you want to say what we were going to do?
I was going to get ChatGPT to write me a description of Superman for somebody who hasn't seen or heard of Superman, but it wanted my phone number and I wasn't comfortable giving the AI my personal details just yet.
I mean, it's definitely already got them. Like, it knows your it knows your blood type and stool sample easily already.
I give those so freely though, Ryan.
Well, yeah, and the phone number's different because you don't want to. You don't have to block people or change your number. That's
Exactly,
that'd be the worst thing. So.
You're gonna have some of my shit. Like,
exactly. So what I do have, as our usual run, I have the Wikipedia description of the comic. So, you know, the same old. It's a little interesting because it's about the specific issue rather than, it's not just like, this is Superman.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what specifically happens in the story. So the other reason that we're doing this one in particular is we did mention on a previous podcast, famously, Alan Moore hates having his name attached to adaptations of his works. He hates them all. He hates the people who make them, Marvel, DC, what have you. And he wants nothing to do with them, to the point where he threatened to sue them if they put his name on them. This, as we mentioned in the previous episode, is the one adaptation that he allowed his name to be used for.
There's an adaptation of this.
We've talked about this. You need to start listening back to the episodes. So
I need to start listening to the podcast, Ryan.
Oh yeah, exactly. By the way, we do a podcast. We release a podcast. This actually this goes out to the public now.
Oh, I just thought these fuzzy things in front of me were something fun to talk at.
Yeah, I'm more like a carer than a friend. I like to think.
You haven't changed my chamber pot on this visit.
Well, speaking of chamber pots, let's go to Wikipedia. That was me. I love Wikipedia.
Oh, that's so good.
It was
that's
a good
staying
segue.
in.
I love Wikipedia. But so Alan Moore allowed this adaptation because it was it's an episode of a cartoon, Justice League, maybe Justice League Unlimited, one of those.
Yeah.
So apparently the story goes that Alan Moore wrote this comic back in 1985, and then they were making the cartoon Justice League / Justice League Unlimited cartoon. Justice League cartoon years later, like mid-2000s, I think. And they thought, hey, well, let's do the story. So they went to Alan Moore and they said, hey, we're doing your story from Superman. We're doing a couple Justice League episodes. Do you have any input or, say something, give us any ideas or whatnot? And he was like, yeah, I'll help her out. And I'll, give you some advice or whatever. And they talked about like what bits to remove, because the TV show episodes, the cartoon, they have like far less in them than this, which we'll get into. But basically, he helped out a bit, and then he said, you know what, you can put my name on it if you want. Because I think they were just like, yeah, we're just making a cartoon for kids. We're not making a film and trying to make millions of dollars and, move merch and fuck people over.
I suppose it's in the spirit of more likely the way he probably felt when he was writing this, which is, I'm just doing a cool comic for kids,
Possibly. I mean, to delve into the mind of one Sir Alan Moore, who I've just given the knighthood to, is in itself a journey into discovery,
By the way, Alan, if you come on the podcast, I have a sword, and we will give you the first Comic Literate title, and we will name you Sir Alan Moore of the Comic Literate podcast.
The Knight of the Folding Table. Which is a joke it's a good joke if you know that we record on a folded table. Then it's funny.
Only funny if you know that, we record on my drop leaf table.
Which is very handy, and I highly recommend. I'm getting one myself.
Handy dandy drop leaf table, man. They're great.
Exactly. So, this Superman issue it's technically a Superman annual. So, every once in a while, they'll be doing like the annuals. For those who don't know, I assume you don't.
No.
So for those who don't know, annuals they'll be doing the run of comics, right? So they'll be doing like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, whatever. The normal comic will be going. And then once a year, I think maybe towards the end of the year, I'm not sure if that's always the case. Maybe, but they're not always Christmas themed. But the annual is like, hey, here's like a quick 5 issues worth of story. It's separate from the rest of the story. It's just, this.
Yeah, my experience of annuals is as those big hardback books that come out around Christmas. Like, they're not canon, they're just there to...
Well, so a lot of them are canon, but it's just that they slot into whatever the normal story is. So wherever the story's going on, it's like, hey, ignore that for a second. And sometimes canonically, they'll ignore it. Yeah. Like Spider-Man, say he's like fighting bloody the Kingpin or Doc Ock, whatever. And then the beginning of the annual, he'll be like mid-story with whatever this character is. And then at the beginning of the annual, he's like, oh, it's nice to take a break from this ongoing feud I have with Doc Ock. I'm going to go off and do this thing for a bit. And he just has a little side adventure. Then he comes back, it's like, oh yeah, that Doc Ock thing. I forgot about that. So
it's a little Christmas side quest.
But it's not always Christmas. The annuals themselves aren't holiday themed. They're just like a break from the normal story for some reason.
But they release them in November.
Everything I'm saying is my experience of annuals. Yeah. Like, I could have completely missed the mark on what they do, their function, what they're for. This is just the ones I've read. But... this is an annual, so it is a self-contained story, which I think is very obvious from reading it.
Yeah.
It's only about 2 issues worth, maybe 3 issues. It's about 40-ish pages, but...
yeah, it's not long.
Not at all. So the story is, or the blurb of the story is... so the story is called For the Man Who Has Everything, which I think is an apt title for the story.
Yeah, isn't it just?
And it's a comic book story by writer Alan Moore and artist Dave Gibbons, first published in Superman Annual 11 in 1985. It contains the first appearance of the Black Mercy, a magical extraterrestrial plant-like organism which, upon symbiotically attaching itself to its victims, incapacitates them while causing them to hallucinate, living out their greatest fantasy. Now, that's an interesting part. By the way, we're just spoiling the whole thing. If up top, I was surprised by how good it was. For someone who's not that into older comics, I was surprised how good and engaging.
Right, wasn't it? Yeah.
I was surprised how engaging the story was. And this was someone who saw a version of it in the Justice League or the cartoon show already.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Sure.
There were times where I got a little bit lost with names.
Yeah, the Kryptonian names are hard if you don't know them. Yeah,
not Scooby, mate.
Yeah, no.
Like, I'm not 100% sure who the woman in hospital was.
It was his cousin, if that makes a difference at all. I mean, you could infer it was part of his family.
Was she the same cousin that became Supergirl?
Yeah.
Sick.
Kara Zor-El, yeah.
Oh, well, that just slots her into a context now. I like her. She's cool.
Does, but I think even then she wasn't that fleshed out a character. So, I mean, here she was used as a plot device to depress the main character. So, classic 80s, classic Moore in a way. But I think that's an appropriate description of Moore, isn't it? Like Swamp Thing, I think League of Gentlemen. I mean, we went in depth on that and his treatment of Nina Murray and whether it was intentional or not.
I mean, he murdered a bunch of prostitutes in From Hell.
That as well, yes. I mean, if you're gonna write a bloody Jack the Ripper comic,
I thought it was funny.
The new up-to-date, and I say this as a lefty as anyone will say, but the updated woke version of Jack the Ripper is like, and nobody died.
The up-to-date version of Jack the Ripper where they all respect that sex work is sex workers' work and pay the prostitutes promptly.
Yes, and also no one dies because
no one dies.
Yeah,
I'm gonna write the shit out of that. Like,
you write it
for it.
You write it. I mean, I'll read it. I'll read the hell of it. It might be the only one, but I'll read it. So yeah, spoilers for it. It's a great one. Go out and read it if you can. But I thought what's interesting is what I found interesting as a difference to the Justice League cartoon was the point of the plant. The point of the plant is living out the person's greatest fantasy. Now, they say this explicitly in the story as well.
Yeah.
And yet, Superman does not really live out his fantasy all the way. So he lives the setting of, basically he fantasizes, or he's in a dream-like state where he is back on Krypton, it never exploded, and he's just grown up there, right? And then it just goes all nuts, doesn't it? It just goes completely haywire.
I think, and I understand it, I think it makes sense to me. In as much as he has this incredibly fantastical life as Superman on Earth. As Superman on Earth, he has this incredibly fantastical life. And so maybe his biggest fantasy would just be being back on Krypton and leading a normal family life with all of the trials and tribulations that come with that.
So the thing is, what you've described there is basically exactly what happens in the Justice League episode. So he's literally just normal dad to normal family on Krypton. And it's like, hey, mum and dad, you're still alive and everything. And that's exactly it. And then the problem, I mean, it's been years since I've seen this cartoon. Should have watched it for now, but didn't have time. But as I remember, the problem becomes accepting if it's real or not. That becomes the crux of the fantasy was, is this real? I feel like it's not, kind of thing. In this, his dad basically becomes a right-wing extremist.
Well, this is what I was about to say. Yeah, his idealized version of his life includes space Klansmen.
Exactly, and that's so weird. Like, I don't know if Alan was trying to make a point, maybe to what he thinks Krypton would have been if it didn't explode, but then is he missing his own point of a idealized fantasy?
Is he making a comment on the fact that Superman's characterization as the all-American corn-fed hero also makes him a bit racist?
But he doesn't like any of the stuff that's happening. Like,
no, he's not all into it, is he?
No, it could be a metaphor, but he himself is like, Dad, I heard you're becoming a right-wing extremist political party.
And then he's driving somewhere, isn't he? And he gets interrupted by his dad having like a space Hitler rally.
Yes.
It's very weird.
It is very weird and very in keeping with like Alan Moore's version of a superhero. Like, hey, Alan Moore, we need you to write Superman. I'm going to make his dad a Nazi. What? That's my only that's my only requirement. That's, you let me have that and I'll run wild with it.
And this is the 80s. And so I suppose American Euroscepticism was at a fairly prominent point at that point, and you know, this stuff was all only 40 years old. It was within living memory, and so actually no, let's be clear here. He wasn't drawing on Nazism, he was drawing on the Klansmen. And so it was a very kind of American.
We should point out, so the reason that we're referring to the Klan specifically in this is because there's a specific panel where Superman is driving and he drives into what turns out to be his dad's right-wing extremist political rally, and they're all wearing red robes with upside-down swords.
They are dressed as Klansmen.
They're dressed as Klansmen.
So obviously the Klan.
It's to the point where you're like, did they have the Klan on Krypton?
I'm almost confident that they use the word Klan at some point to describe it.
They definitely talk about immigrants from another part of the planet of
Krypton. Fucking A. It's very Ku Klux Klansy.
And it's such a jump for a comic that I enjoyed. It's such a jump from, and how he talks about it, he's like, oh yeah, the Science Council kicked me out because I got this one prediction wrong. I said the Earth was going to explode and then it didn't, and they were like, ugh, get out. And now I'm right-wing extremist. Like, what? Like, you missed a few steps there.
It was quite funny because there was a point where Superman said, I really sometimes think you wish that Krypton had exploded. And it's like, I did.
Yeah. And that's, for me, I don't know if this is, someone will probably disagree that this is not comparable, but this to me is like if Neil deGrasse Tyson predicted the end of the world.
Neil deGrasse Tyson used to be such a sweet man.
Yeah, he used to.
It's gone really badly for him, hasn't it?
But like when he was nice, or when he was beloved, if he was like, the world's gonna explode, and then it didn't, he's like, I'm a Nazi now. Like, what happened between those steps?
I feel like Neil deGrasse Tyson has become the meme of himself.
Yeah, I think so. After he started hosting Cosmos, which was a good show, but I think he just got a bit full of himself.
Yeah.
Bloody smart people and their understanding science. Ooh, you know.
He's not a great science communicator as far as I'm concerned.
I think he's a better communicator than most. I think, like, in terms of scientists, like, explaining ideas, he does have a skill for, like, articulating it well to the layman.
If I could Photoshop Hank Green over the top of him in everything he does, I'd be really happy.
I mean, I'm just going to take your word that Hank Green is probably better at articulating science.
You don't know who Hank Green is,
I know who he is, but I don't know enough about him to understand the reference.
Very good science.
I infer from what you've said. One thing I found very interesting before we get into like more specifics is the time this was released in terms of comics. So I kind of had a look to be like, what was comics like when this was being released?
Yeah. What month was it released in?
I actually don't know. I don't have the month it was released, but because it's in annual, so it's released over months. But I don't know which particular.
I want vindication.
What, there was a December.
I want
there was a
Krypton
Christmas.
to explode.
You know what? It probably was Christmas because they took. Oh no, it was birthday, wasn't it? That was his birthday. They took precedence.
Yeah.
Also, Superman's birthday, February 29th. Which for us, that's quite soon to when we're. So this is even more appropriate for us to be honest.
Happy birthday, Mr. Superman.
The episode won't release probably till April, but for us recording, we know exactly when. We know we're celebrating Superman's birthday, near enough, close enough. But when this comic was released, I thought, what were comics like at the time? Because to look at one comic isn't indicative of like what comics
everything.
are. Exactly. So I had a look, and I looked up comics from like the 80s, and like 80s, 1980 to 1983, like one or two things come out, but not anything major. Akira came out in 82, and that's a big manga comic. Then 1984, you've got Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, which is the big first crossover event for Marvel. You've got Spider-Man's black costume, which was a big thing for him because of Secret Wars. The bloody premiere of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the beginning of Dragon Ball. That was all in 84, right?
Big year.
Yeah, then 85, you've got the year this came out, Crisis on Infinite Earths, the DC big crossover title, the one that gets repeated every bloody year now. And then 86, you've got another Superman one, Man of Steel, which was a well-known Superman title. The Batman The Dark Knight Returns.
That's a big one, isn't it?
One of the most seminal, most well-known Batman titles of all time.
Didn't The Killing Joke come out around this time as well?
A bit later, like late 90s, I think.
Okay.
And then, to top it off in 86, Watchmen. So Moore finished this, and he was like, right, I got my Watchmen thing, I'm gonna knock that out. So it was a credible couple of years for comics.
Isn't it? That's so telling. Like, it's just clicked something in my brain where the setting of this really put me in mind of the last act or the last part of Watchmen. When they go to that snowy base.
Yeah. I mean, that snowy base, I think, was like a reference to the Fortress of Solitude. Like, it was like but it also was like a evil base in the snow, which is quite a common thing in like James Bond even. So it's a trope. It's a trope, yeah. But it definitely reminisces. And the fact there was a tentacle alien monster as well. Yeah. And Moore literally wrote that year later. So he's probably writing it alongside this. Like,
and
Watchmen probably took
you reckon
ages.
I can use that snow base idea again and no one will notice?
Yeah, no one was like, hey, I recognise that snow base. Hey, I recognise that
From the Superman
alien.
annual.
Yeah,
that Superman annual my nan bought me for Christmas. I
mean, so if you can look up, if you can find it, go ahead.
Right. We're going to keep talking. I'm going to do it.
Of course.
I've upset Ryan, but it's fine. I'm having fun.
If you prove it's December, fantastic.
Well, my prediction is November because December's too late for Christmas gift giving.
Okay. And bearing in mind the gift giving that happens in the title is it's Superman's birthday, and Batman and Wonder Woman and Robin, for some reason, rock up. And also, the Fortress of Solitude is meant to be like top of the North Pole. Wonder Woman is in her classic Wonder Woman gear for the 80s.
Not a whole lot of it.
Exactly. But she's Amazonian, so I'll excuse like body temperature and stuff like that. Batman's wearing all his gear. He's probably protected. Bloody Robin is in like sleeveless top and pants, essentially, underwear. And he's just like, boy, it's cold out here. It's like, mate, you should be dying in this weather. But they rock up for Superman's birthday and they bought gifts. One interesting difference to the cartoon from the comic is in the comic, Batman has had scientists create a strain of rose that he's called the Krypton, or it's called Krypton or something. He's made him a flower, basically. And Wonder Woman's got him a replica of the shrunken city of Kandor.
Yeah, which was really sweet.
Yeah, exactly. But in the cartoon, they made a great change where they're talking about what presents they got. Wonder Woman and Batman are talking as they're approaching what presents they got him. And Wonder Woman's like, what'd you get him? And Batman just holds up an envelope and he just goes, cash. But you imagine Batman's like, it's got to be at least $100,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
And for Superman, it's like, yeah, all right, you got all this alien tech and stuff, but also you're on a journalist's wage. So, here's a bunch of money because you definitely need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's.
The rose was a nice touch.
I thought it was an interesting one, especially like at the end when he finds out that the rose basically been crushed in the battle, and he just goes, "Well, frankly, it's dead." I just loved that line.
Yeah, he says it's dead, and then Superman goes, "Well, frankly, that was a good thing."
Well, frankly, it's dead. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed the comic. I liked the language. It was kind of more nostalgic. The language of Batman reminded me of Adam West Batman, especially when
is that what you had in your head?
Well, it's of one particular line, which was when Robin is looking at, I think it's his first time meeting Wonder Woman, who he's like, whoa. And also, Robin just become new Robin.
Yeah.
So you think like, bloody hell, I'm fighting with Batman and we're going to fight like criminals and supervillains. Like, by the way, here's an Amazonian and an alien and a fortress in the North Pole.
He gets on with it though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's just like, this is what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But the line from Batman, which made me think of Adam West, is when Robin is first seeing
I know exactly what you're about to say.
Think clean thoughts, chum. I read that in Adam West's voice.
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
literally.
so good. Can you do an Adam West?
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see. Think clean thoughts, chum.
That's pretty good.
Whatever that is.
That's not too bad.
Sure. But Batman's more talkative in this era, and I think the stoic, silent hero was not a trope yet, or it was maybe in action films, but not in comics. I don't know. 80s action films, where you say they were stoic and not very talkative?
In 80s action films, they were a bit quippy, weren't they?
Yeah.
They all had catchphrases.
And
stuff.
Batman's quite quippy, and I think they're all a bit quippy in this, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, Batman's quite talkative. Wonder Woman's fun.
Yeah, she's just like getting on with it. She's, again, Alan Moore writing a capable female character who's just like, I'm just getting on with it. I'm fighting the bad guy. I'm doing whatever needs to be done.
There's that scene at the end where they hug, and Batman's like, we should do this more often. And Wonder Woman goes, yeah, a bit predictable. I'm like, oh, that's so good. She doesn't care. Yeah. She's not into it.
I liked Alan Moore's language that he used for Krypton stuff. So he's obviously just made up a bunch of stuff. And some of it's quite good in terms of like, getting the core meaning of a word and
I like
changing
that they call the car a floater.
Yeah, that was good. I like the birthday was first day, which
it's
not that far, but it's just a clever like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's the core concept, obviously. But then in that same panel that I noticed that, he goes, oh, don't worry, the Robutlers will get that later. I was like, you phoned that one in a bit. Come on. Robot butlers. Fucking Robutlers. That's me done for the day. I'm done.
Now we have Robutlers.
Yeah, but we don't call them Robutlers.
Zumba
is a more interesting name than Robutler.
I'm exclusively going to refer to any kind of Zumba or, the robots that deliver you drinks in restaurants these days.
Yeah.
They're Robutlers from now on.
And someone's going to be like, that's a pretty lazy name.
Like, yeah, and I'll be like, blame Alan Moore.
Didn't you get a degree in literature? The best you come up with Robutler. You'd be like, Alan Moore, he did it. It was him.
'Twas Mr. Moore.
Sir Moore, as we've established. So the Kryptonians all look ridiculous, and I think that's like a common trope of like alien world, multicolors. They're wearing capes. They got things out of their necks or whatever.
It looks like, and hear me out on this, a Futurama themed party in a gay pub.
Colourful, amazing wear, that kind of thing. That's probably closer. Like just normal drag, I think, is closer to Krypton.
Yeah, man, we should host a Krypton themed drag night.
It's just going to be all those circles around the head things that
I love it.
Like Saturn's rings, but just around the forehead, that kind of thing.
I live for it. Yeah, the head circlets are a thing, aren't they?
And they're also like all ripped, so they've all got like low V-necks. So Alan Moore correctly predicted V-necks, I think.
I think he did, yeah.
V-neck sweaters, V-neck shirts, all that kind of stuff.
Was that a thing in the 80s?
I don't think so.
No, I feel like that came later.
Superman's dad has become a right-wing extremist. That sounds like a hard pivot, but like it's one of the biggest points that we've already addressed, but it's just so weird, isn't it?
I know, it's wild. And it's coming from this like really obvious, spurned, angry place. It's not just like, oh, I've seen some immigrants and I don't like it. Like, no, somebody upset me and now I hate immigrants.
And yeah, and it's also, mate, you got your prediction wrong about the world blowing up.
You should be chuffed.
But also like, you got it wrong. That's not like a math equation like, oh, I've got to carry the one. It's like either the planet blew up or it didn't.
It's binary.
And you got, it was such an extreme end of choices and you got the wrong one.
Which means that in the actual canon, Krypton ended and Superman's dad
Did you call
Really?
him Superman like it's a surname?
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Hey, Carl Superman.
Been doing it for the entire recording.
That is a running joke and other things. I heard best like it's like I'm gonna call Spider-Man like it's a surname, so it's like
Spider-Man.
Thank God you're here, Spider-Man.
And Batman.
Batman, yeah. Wonder Woman, no, it doesn't work there. But Superman.
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 Super. It's like an angry police captain. Superman.
Mr. Superman's dad
Yes.
clearly felt incredibly vindicated when Krypton ended in the actual canon.
I mean, if I got that, I mean, because that's the thing, no one believed him then either. So in the actual canon, he jettisoned. So that's another thing. He jettisoned his kid in the canon out into a spaceship. He's like, they retcon it. It's like, oh, there's a planet there, Earth. That's close enough to ours. I'll send you there. I've worked this all out. But basically, blasts his kid into space. In this one, he was dead set on the planet exploding, but not quite enough to jettison his kid.
Yeah, he's a real arsehole, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's definitely an arsehole. And again, it comes back, I keep coming back to this point, but it's like, you get locked into a fantasy. So, and I think the story's really great in that respect. Like, you can't beat Superman, but what if you trick him into a fantasy where all his dreams come true, and he doesn't want to leave, or leaving is as the bad guy, the antagonist of the issue. And I want to get his name right, because his is a name that's like, if you get it wrong, you might say something. So his name is Mongul. It's Mongul.
Yeah, no, it can only be pronounced that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to be careful. So Mongul, he was smart to like, hey, if I put Superman in this thing, it'll be difficult for him to get out because he has to give up his hopes and dreams, essentially. His biggest fantasy.
Going back to Mongul for a minute, is he... I assumed he would be a superhero villain that you'd be familiar with, or did Alan Moore make him up just for this? I
don't think he was made up just for this. Superman recognized him. The others didn't. I think he was an existing character.
Okay.
Because the thing about Moore is he does like using existing characters. He wanted to use existing characters for Watchmen originally, and you can tell which characters, which ones are which. But so Mongol, I think he was an existing one. I think he was a commonly used one. For obviously, he's like, in terms of like strength, he's like dark side Doomsday level. Like he can take Superman on physically.
Yeah.
To the point where it could like
I don't know what Dark Side Doomsday level means.
Okay, so Dark Side is the big Justice League enemy, like the big bad of the entire Justice League,
right?
And Doomsday is the one who killed Superman. So
because I suppose you have to have a fairly powerful villain for them to be able to take Superman on, and to justify the other Justice League people even being there. Because surely most threats Superman could like laser eye them. Or make the other little Superman come out of his hand to do stuff.
Thank God we're past that point. He's not got the super
right
eating.
Back there.
Yeah, you can find those. You can find those easily. I think I was literally on tender hooks, being like, is he about to do some ridiculous power out of nowhere? It's like, nope, it's just super strength, heat vision, flying, brilliant, super hearing, brilliant. It's Mongol was able to take him on fight for fight, and it literally describes it where they are 50-50. They're completely locked into, battling each other, and it could have gone either way. But he was a very well-written character, I thought, as one who has tricked, because he's someone who can take Superman on physically, knows that it's not a guarantee, so he tricks him with this present that latches on and puts Superman in this state. And it's a smart thing, put someone in their fantasy, they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Why Superman's fantasy is dad becoming a racist.
Well, I was about to say, there's something going on in Superman's psyche where his idealized version of his life has space Nazis.
And not just that, but just like his family falling apart almost. He's got his mum's dead. He's got a strained relationship with his dad. You could argue, this was my kind of headcanon, that the fantasy is intentionally flawed to be more believable. So if everything was perfect in this specific iteration, someone would more likely be like, no, this is too good to be true, so it must be.
Or do you think it's just that because Superman lost everything, he wants his family life to be, he just wants his family to be alive in whatever fallible form that would take?
But his brain still had to pick a form, and that's the odd thing as well. It's like there's other things, like maybe they had a bit of financial problems, or maybe someone's got a drug addiction. It's like, nope, dad's a Nazi. That's the only thing. That's the only thing it could be.
It's the only thing that could go wrong here.
Exactly. So It seemed to me like a really weird choice, but I really did enjoy Mongol as a character. I thought he was just going to be a quick I thought I was going to get Superman out of the way, and now he's back and ruined my plans or whatever. I thought he was very eloquent, very well spoken. He had a line which I thought was one of my favorite lines I've ever heard from an antagonist in a comic.
Oh my!
And it was Superman's incapacitated. He's talking to Wonder Woman about Batman. He says, I'm ad-libbing. He basically says, like, I don't know your customs. I don't know what Earth is like. I just knew Superman is here and I just wanted to take over. I don't know what your age and gender discriminations are here. So I feel like I should ask first, which of you would it be polite to kill first?
And then Wonder Woman takes a pop at him and he's like, there we go.
But I thought that was such a good, like,
yeah.
He's a cat playing with his food. And he doesn't give a shit. He could have, in his mind, he could have killed. He doesn't know how strong Wonder Woman is. In his mind, he's already thinks he can kill everyone immediately.
Yeah.
So he's just playing around, entertaining himself.
It feels like Alan Moore, who we've already established, doesn't seem to have bought too strongly into our traditional ideas about gender from the comics that he's written.
And especially in the 80s.
Yeah, it seems like him taking a bit of a stab at our conception of our mid-1980s conception of gender.
And especially because in this instance, the Trinity has always been for a long time, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So if Superman's incapacitated, there's a strong villain, antagonist, then naturally Wonder Woman has to be the one to step up.
Because she's the most powerful.
Exactly. And I think he wrote it in a good way where it's like to address the discrepancies or to address the misconceptions about age and gender and everything, and for the villain to kind of be the mouthpiece for Alan Moore for a bit.
Yeah.
Hey, which of you are the strongest? And also to Mongol, he's like, I don't see gender because we don't have it where I'm from.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what, we could have 10, we could have 1, like, who knows where he's from.
Does that make him a they?
I think he describes himself as a he.
Does he use he and pronouns?
He might, but the problem with the whole alien translation thing is it's like, do they have like language? Do they have like international? Do they have translators where they just understand every alien language?
Yeah.
But then it's whatever your version is. So if he uses him, it's like in our brain, it's like the closest we have
the
is
closest
he, him.
analogy to a pronoun.
Yeah.
I like the way that Douglas Adams dealt with that.
Was that the Hitchhiker's Guide with the earwig?
The little fish. Pop a little fish in your ear.
They do a good one of that. Well, no spoilers, but they do a good one of that in Ant-Man and Quantumania.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is they never bothered with anything like that as far as I know, they didn't bother with anything like that in Guardians of the Galaxy. So in Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill goes to space, alien races. He's like, yeah, we all speak English.
Yeah, they're all just speaking the common tongue.
Yeah, and then they come down to Earth, and I think there might be like a half a second throwaway line. It's like, oh, my translator's on the fritz, or something like dumb like that. But yeah, I enjoyed Mongol as a bad guy. I thought it was really interesting seeing Superman in normal life as himself. So specifically referring to himself as like Kal-El and everything.
This is the thing, because I was really confused, because I was expecting them to all be calling him Clark Kent. But I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's his human name. Is Kal-El is that like accepted as his Kryptonian name?
Yeah, 100%. That's fully built into his backstory. That is his original. He's from the House of El, and his full name is Kal-El.
Right, because I was baffled, right? Because I know literally nothing about DC Comics.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll be completely honest with you, not a fucking Scooby.
Would you say that it was not necessary to understand the story, or like
would have helped at the start, because there was all these Kryptonian names coming at me firm and fast. What I realise here is that a comic book that was published in this kind of way, by the way, could not find a date of publication on the internet.
We'll just say it was December or November, whenever.
No, don't give me that.
All right, fine, it was January. Fuck you, it was January now.
They didn't fucking March, it was an Easter thing. Yeah, coming into it, I'm like, obviously somebody who was buying the annual series, like the special run, would be really familiar with Superman and his backstory. And so obviously, like, this is all knowledge that I should have had going into it. And if I even had like a passing experience with Superman, I would have known. And like, this will be one of those things that the next time I approach a Superman comic and I see Kal-El, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's Superman.
I suppose that's Superman. I suppose that in that opening bit, you might not have known that was Superman, because for me, I'm like, oh, Kal-El. But also, if they draw Superman, like comic drawing sometimes, like that could be a guy who looks like Superman. You don't know because they're not detailed enough drawings to distinguish between person.
I've always felt that, particularly with Bruce Banner, Clark Kent.
Bruce Banner? Bruce Wayne?
Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
Who's Bruce Banner?
The Hulk. So you're close.
Ah, there we go.
It's a comic character.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the wrong one.
Yeah, different one.
No, Bruce Banner's well interesting to look at. He's green.
And he's got those purple trousers.
Absolutely, yeah. Which he never has on at the start.
I mean, sometimes he does.
Does it?
Yeah,
but,
in the comics.
But he only sometimes has the purple trousers on. But when he becomes the Hulk, he always has the purple trousers on.
I watched a video recently, game theory and film theory.
Yeah.
They recently launched Style Theory, so it's all
Right.
about clothes, and they did about the Hulk's trousers. And apparently one of the retconned excuses from like the 80s, like early on, was Bruce Banner would go to towns and buy clothes, and what he would do is he would basically seek out purple trousers because they were always on sale because no one else wore them. So
Because he was going to ruin them anyway.
Exactly. So we'd buy 10 pairs for like much cheaper than like denim or black trousers. He's like, what does every clothes shop has that no one buys?
Yeah.
Purple trousers. So that was the excuse.
The next time I have the distinct misfortune of having to go clothes shopping, I'm going to seek out some purple trousers for you.
Purple corduroy would be we said we wouldn't go on tangents in this episode.
What? I think I was a little bit drunk in a pub toilet expressing my newfound love for corduroy to you recently.
A couple weeks ago, but yeah.
Was that was a thing that happened, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't pinpoint. That wasn't such a weird conversation. I was like, oh, Jamie's drunk again. I was just like, that's what Jamie talks about.
Were we even drinking?
Yeah, I think we'd had a little celebratory one or two, you know.
Yeah, we'd had a tipple.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I've often felt that Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne,
Yes.
their character models,
Very similar.
well, that, but also distinctly indistinct. Take away the Superman outfit, and Clark Kent could be any character in a comic book.
Yes, and I think two things for that. I think one, you can already predict that. I think that was just the proto American male hero.
Yeah,
we've talked about that before, where like John Wayne kind of look, short black or dark hair, Caucasian obviously, and just chiseled, strong jaw, that kind of thing. So like Batman, Superman, starting in the late 40s. You know, post-war, was obviously going to be like, look, he's the ideal American hero fighting for truth and justice in the American way, you know, and all that. The other thing that's interesting is canonical that they do look similar. And the reason for that is because they've had issues where Superman has pretended to be Batman. So there's one where like Batman's up against like Bane. This was in like the animated series, or like the Superman animated series, which was the canonical prequels to the Justice League series.
Okay.
So those shows end, and they continued the same voice actors. Kevin Conroy, who passed, and we've talked about him. He was famous. He was so iconic as the Batman voice because he went from the Batman animated series to Justice League, which is where they did this adaptation. But they did a thing where Batman's fighting Bane, and Bane's like, obviously I'm stronger than you. I'm gonna kill you, even though he never has before. And then Batman just like gets his arm, chucks him over his shoulder, and Bane's like, what? And he's like, and then later, like, he just goes to prison, and then later it's like, oh yeah, but I'm secretly Superman.
I sent Superman instead of Batman.
Batman's busy. He asked me to fill in for. I just thought I'd fuck with him. So they must have had similar jawlines, at least.
The idea that it's like a substitute teacher situation.
Right, your normal superhero's gone, so I'm stepping in. But like, if you're Gotham, and you're like, oh, Jesus, it's Superman. If you're Metropolis, and you're like,
fucked.
Doomsday. No, because then you're like, who's filling in? The guy with no powers. Oh, bloody hell.
This is
gonna
great.
be easy, yeah.
It's like an actual substitute teacher situation where it's like, we are not getting any work done today.
We are
lads.
going mental, all of us. Doomsday, here, like, what is it? Someone's written a fake name. It's like, Seymour Butts, like, and they're like, damn it, who wrote a fake name?
I like the idea of the Joker, who's just a bloke who has a predisposition for skullduggery and makeup suddenly has to fight Superman.
Well, they have done things like that. That was a big Injustice comic book series, which was actually based on the Mortal Kombat style DC fighting game. But they made a comic book series to accompany the story to the game. And literally out of nowhere, like a proper cash grab tie-in, like let's just get a comic out there because we want to hype this game coming out. The comic was amazing. Like one of the best DC comics I've ever read.
I suppose that ties in with the ongoing conversation that we've been having about Marvel and DC, which is actually when Marvel or DC don't care about a comic, that often means it's going to end up turning out really great because whoever gets it gets creative control.
I think it gives it more of a chance of being great because the person, either you give it a good artist and they're less restrained, or you give it a bad artist and you just get bad artist or writer and you just get the same result.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy how good that comic is. Like, I highly recommend it. Maybe we'll do it one day. But so we're getting into the kind of home stretch of the home stretch of the story. Because I thought the ending was really good, really genuinely exciting. Like I was really engrossed by the story.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's all going to turn out fine. So that's just a sign of good writing. So again, Alan Moore, one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. We always have to keep saying this because we take the piss so much. But I was genuinely engrossed by a Superman comic, and that's rare for me because I'm not a big Superman fan.
I think for me, because of the comics that I'm used to reading, lacked depth.
That's fair, and I think I have a much more of a tolerance for superhero bullshit.
Well, this is the thing. I don't think that's any slight on Alan Moore. I think he did an excellent job of writing a fun adventure story.
Right.
But that's all. I didn't, beyond the Klansman turning up, which is, introduced some depth. But beyond that, there wasn't much depth. It was kind of, the threat was really quickly identified and dealt with, without a whole lot of jeopardy.
I suppose compared to the length of comics you're used to reading, so I'm used to reading shorter stories that can happen over like 1 or 2 issues. So I'm comparing it to that, whereas you've only, if I'm right in saying, you've only really had like longer arcs, like volumes of stories. So to you, this would seem less deep because it's just had less time to get into stuff. That's a theory. It could be a lot of things.
No, I'm inclined to agree.
So I had one of the issues, my issues with issues, soon to be YouTube series. That'll drop at some point 2026. But one of my issues with this was Robin. So he's a new Robin.
Yeah.
It's not Tim Drake. It's Jason Todd.
Do you know much about the Robins?
I know quite a bit about the Robins. Yeah.
So which Robin is this?
This is the second Robin. He's kind of considered one of the worst Robins, but kind of canonically and non-canonically.
Didn't the first Robin become Nightwing?
Yes, Dick Grayson. Yep, good on you.
Things.
So this one, he became the Red Hood because he got beaten to death by the Joker with a crowbar. But the worst part about that is the head of DC at the time, I think it was the head of DC, just didn't like Robin, like hated Robin as a character. Not even like this Robin, just Robin in general. So he basically made it so that it got to a point where Robin was either going to live or die, and they did a phone-in competition. And if you called one number, you voted for him to live, and you voted another number, you voted to die. And the votes came in to die. Whether that's accurate or not, considering we know the bias of the person holding it, who knows? But yeah, he died, and then years later came back as the Red Hood, which was a really good story, like really interesting story. But he's kind of like the black sheep of the Bat family because he would go on to kill people. Like he would
Batman family.
The Batman it's just the Bat family. There's no Mun.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
This is going to be thank God they stopped using the man suffix in superheroes.
It's
thank God.
Endless fun for me.
I mean, hello, Mr. Budman. It's Batman, actually. Batman.
So, was Robin just like an apprentice program for aspiring heroes?
Essentially, yeah. There's a couple of like canonical reasons why he does it. Because it's always like an orphan who Bruce Wayne obviously sees in them and goes, I'm trying to save my own inner child by saving this kid.
And DC murdered him.
They murdered him. Well, Joker technically, but yes. But he came back later, and now he's back in the Batman family.
The Batman family.
The Batman family. But it was one interesting reason the Batman gave is, and it's kind of touched upon in the latest Batman film, where he basically he starts trying to inspire fear into criminals, but he realizes soon on that fear alone is not enough. He also needs to inspire hope as well. And part of inspiring hope is he wanted to, this is in certain iterations, but he wanted to make sure the right people felt the right way about him. So if you were a criminal, you were scared of him. But if you were a good person, then you knew he was someone to look up, not look up to necessarily, but you knew Batman was going to save you.
Oh, so it's like that's Bruce Batman, the guy who takes in orphans.
Exactly, Bruce Batman. And
Bruce Batman.
Yes, and but what specifically he does is he then sees these orphans every once in a while who a family are killed by crime, and then takes them in and makes them Robin. And he says by fighting alongside a child, that gets across to children who see him and the newspapers report him on stuff. It's like, oh, he's got a kid himself, or he's working with a kid, like he's a good person, because you don't see monsters with like child sidekicks. But so Jason Todd was the black sheep. He's just started with Batman, and one thing that irked me, and the reason this is why I'm picking up that he's just started with him, he keeps calling him Bruce.
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
And I'm like, come on, mate, like day one, like this is like, call him Batman.
That's a really nice touch.
I now that I think about it, yeah, and now you've pointed it out, and I said I was kind of like, all right, just to excuse him, but it's like, all right, this is probably why he's doing it. But also, if I was Batman, I'd be like, stop using my fucking real name.
Yeah,
like,
for
I know
fuck's
these
sake, kids.
I know these are friends, they know, but you need to get into the habit quick.
Do they know?
Yeah. The Superman calls him Bruce, and not like in a, well, I heard him just say it. Like him and Wonder Woman already knew.
So everyone gets it wrong.
Well, yeah, but like if you're Superman and Wonder Woman, like they're like the top tier levels.
They can
like
do
they
whatever
can
the fuck they
can
want,
call each
can't
other.
they?
I'm not saying Robin can't call him Bruce in certain situations, but I'm saying when you're out in the field, like let's make it a habit. Come on, like proper, it annoyed me of like the nitpicking at details. Like, come on, mate, sort that out.
Don't have enough respect for Batman.
Exactly. It's calling him Bruce. It's like, right, you're like, when you're at home, call him Bruce, call him Dad, call him whatever you want. But when you're out in the field, you call him Batman or Mr. Batman.
Mr. Batman.
One of the two.
Call him Dad.
Or Dad. But at least like Mr. Batman is more
it's more
professional,
formal, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like calling your boss by your first name. Like, but he's only just started. Like,
fair enough, sir.
Yeah, or Batman or Mr. Executive Vice President or whatever.
Yeah.
It angered me more than it should, if I'm being
I didn't
totally
notice
honest.
it.
Well, there you go, exactly. This is the superhero nerd in me being like, he really should know by now. It's day one, but still. That should have been done in orienteering.
Well, yeah, it'd be on the induction. Orienteering.
Yeah, or the induction, whatever.
Orienteering.
Orientation. That's what I was thinking of.
Orienteering is where you go for a walk without a map.
Yeah, while being shown the ropes of the job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that makes perfect sense.
exactly. And I literally made notes, and two of my notes were, one, Robin calling Batman Bruce just openly, idiot. And then my next note immediately afterwards is, stop calling him Bruce. But then my note after that I thought was really interesting, was the when Batman gets the thing on him.
Yeah.
So I thought it was such a cool moment where Superman's free and he's like, where is he? I'm going to get him. And
That was so cool, wasn't
cool
it?
moment, yeah, when he's standing imposing and in red. It's like Superman angry is the best version of Superman, easily. But I thought it was cool. Batman's in his thing. Pretty obvious. His parents in the alley.
Yeah.
They don't get killed. Mr. Wayne beats the shit out of the robber. I thought what was interesting was the narration is obviously like describing the emotion of the situation. And the narration there refers to the robber as carrying an ugly looking gun. And I thought that's Bruce Wayne's internal narration, because that was the situation that made guns like completely unusable for him. Because even if he had a no-kill policy, he could use like beanbag rounds or whatever. He just always hated guns because they just reminded him of when his parents died. So I thought that was an interesting little addition as well. And then it gets kind of wacky with the fight going on between Mongol and Superman. And you've got Robin, who's like, "Oh, I've got the tentacle off."
Puts it in a bag, doesn't he?
Off you, Mr. Wayne. Well, no, I thought that was really cool. So wait, I got another complaint, a cool part that I'm going to credit. Right?
Okay.
The complaint is Robin puts on the gauntlets that Mongol. So they have a smart bit where they realize Mongol he needed gauntlets to handle the thing in the first place. So he's like, that'll protect me from the thing, right? They're so huge. He's got his little dainty wrists in them, and his hands must fill up one finger.
Yeah.
But he gets them and immediately like makes a fist.
Is able to articulate.
Yeah. And able to hold on to the tentacle monster thing. But so he pulls that off, and I'm like, I literally thought of everything that's happened in this story, the most unbelievable part is that Robin could use those gloves.
This is the part where I become unable to suspend my disbelief.
Exactly. And
I imagined it was like a Hulk hand situation. You know, the foam Hulk hands you could get in the 90s?
Yeah, but those just sit on your fist. Like, he had to, like, use all the fingers and wiggle the fingers. And does the pinky work? Like, but it looked to me like any superhero fan will know this is whenever the Infinity Gauntlet gets picked up.
I was literally about to say that.
And that Infinity Gauntlet is for Thanos.
Yeah.
But then normal humans will put it on. And it's like, I wield the gauntlet now. It's like, how's that staying on?
Yeah.
It's like you're wearing your dad's like jacket or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like really loose and baggy. But then the smart thing I liked immediately after that is he's got the tentacle in the gauntlet. He's running around. He's like, what do I do? What do I do? And he goes, I need to put this in something, but what could I put it in? And I genuinely, at this point, I'm like, I don't know what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
And then literally one of the gauntlets takes it off, big old interior of the gauntlet, use the other one, shoves it into the glove. And I'm like, brilliant. That's really clever. I like a little clever thing like that happening. But then a few panels later, he's then holding it again. And you see why, but it cuts from like, I'm going to do this really smart thing. Put him in. Minute later, I should probably take him out now because I need to. Like, what was the point? Like, getting a whole Tupperware tub for like food. And it's like, I'm just going to eat it now anyway. Like, but then putting it on Mongol, I thought was the natural ending. Like, maybe I can't say for sure because I've seen it. Did you clue on to that being the natural ending of this story?
100%.
So it was an obvious, like, it's happened to Superman, it's happened to Batman, didn't happen to Wonder Woman.
I was excited for what Mongol's like heart's desire was going to be. Like the last third of the comic, I was like, I wonder what he wants.
Well, so one thing I thought was interesting, and this is a rare moment where I think I could have written this better than Alan Moore. Knowing full well,
stop listening.
Yeah, turn off your ear, just cover your ears for a bit, sing lullaby or something.
For everyone other than Alan Moore, this revelation's going to exist, but we're going to do a cold close just for Alan. So thanks very much for listening, Alan.
You've been a sport as always.
You've been a sport as always, and we're really excited to have you on.
And we'll do brunch sometime.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Or like a Wizard's Cafe, if that's a thing.
Yeah, we can drink butterbeer. Is that
That's like a Harry Potter. He'd hate Harry Potter. He's not a Harry Potter fan.
Do you reckon he doesn't like Harry Potter?
I think he thinks that's cultural appropriation. Because he's a real wizard, and that's fake
he's an
shit.
actual wizard.
Yeah, that fakes you out of here. So I thought I acknowledge that I think this is because I'm used to modern writing tropes. So what I thought was going to happen, and I think would have still made it better, especially for a comic coming out in 85, was if Robin held the thing and then Mongol just immediately killed him with like heat beam or whatever, and then did all the stuff, all the conquering and everything, and then reveals that he had the monster attached.
And so his heart's desire was to kill Robin in that moment and then carry on with his life.
And it does all that, but it shows him getting the monster attached and then shows all that. And I think if you had just taken out the actual monster attaching to him, you could have had a fun, false ending.
There would have been more jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been like, oh God, he's killed Robin. Oh, no, he died already.
What that wouldn't have allowed for is the fun little quippy ending between the Trinity.
So I wouldn't made it the proper ending. I would have made it like oh no, he's won. Like he's beat Robin and now he's beat Superman and now he's conquering Earth. And then after that cuts to him unconscious with the thing on him.
Yeah.
And then you do the ending as normal. But I thought that would have been a cool false like, oh my God. Oh, okay. No, that was clever. Like I thought that's what I was expecting.
So Alan,
you can listen now.
Yeah, you can come back now.
We'll put time codes for him specifically.
Yeah, I think you should actually do that. When you allow the next big cinematic adaptation of this masterwork, that's how you should end it. And do you know what? Will you even forego credit just to see it end that way?
I mean, if nothing else, he sticks to his core beliefs. He rarely deviates to the point that we did this comic because of the one time he deviated. So he's probably not going to want his name attached. If I was a gambling man, I would say he probably is not up for it.
Which means that you can have all the credit.
Yeah, I'll take the credit. Yeah, based on a story by Comic Stan. Like, yes, finally.
Finally made it.
I ain't made my YouTube videos yet, but I wrote a film. Woo! And last little bit, I think you'll agree with this. I really liked Superman using his super speed to hide the fact that he'd already received the gift that Wonder Woman gave him. And I thought that's peak Superman.
Yeah.
Like, of the character, like using super speed, hiding it, be like, oh, I love this. This is great. I've never had this before. Hidden in a cupboard.
Lovely.
Yeah. Nice little ending to it. That and, the hug and this would be predictable.
The hug. Oh, the hug, Ryan. The glorious highs.
The greatest MMF threesome of the DC universe. And I mean, a crime-fighting threesome is what I mean. Get your head out of the gutter.
MMF?
Yeah. Male, male, female.
That's okay.
It's an anthropological term.
Anthropological.
Anthropological. That's also an anthropological term. Anthropology. Anthropology. Polygamy. Anyway.
If there was a superhero who was an anthropologist, do you think there'd be Anthroman?
I know you want me to bite on the mun part, but maybe the one that turns into animals or something? Animal Man or Beastman?
Beastman! Ah, he'd be Barry Beastman.
Yeah, obviously his first name Barry, because we've only got the one Barry, that's the Flash. That doesn't feel like a Barry. Barry is a human name. You'll be like, he's not very fast, is he?
No, have you ever met somebody who's fast called Barry?
Never in my life. They've all been quite slow and...
Rotund,
yes. Except for Barry... I thought I knew another Barry.
What we're going to find here is we'll be inundated with Wikipedia pages of incredibly sprightly Barrys.
I don't mean to, I'm not trying to pick up on every, missaid word, but you definitely said Wikipedia there.
Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's how you're supposed to pronounce...
It's what it is now. From now on, it's Wikipedia.
Well, you know that A and the E together?
I mean, no, I've never heard anyone else call it that.
It's not, no. I'm pretty sure that
You could have convinced me.
I'm pretty sure that Wikipedia is spelt with an E. But encyclopedia, it has an AE, and that AE is an Old English rune that makes an A sound, so technically you should pronounce it encyclopedia.
Well, I'll believe you, but only because I don't know enough to dispute it. I don't know enough about spelling or spelling specific words.
I'll give you one Alan Moore point if you are able to correctly identify where I just lifted that entire thing from.
Okay. What title or fiction?
TV show.
TV show.
It's my comfort food classic.
Vikings?
No. Ba 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 da ba 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 da 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 da.
I do know it.
We talk about it on a bi-weekly basis. How I Met Your Mother.
That's the one, yeah. All right. On that note,
I'm so sorry I've derailed this episode.
we won a hard, just a bit over an hour.
Yeah,
so we almost would have come in under an hour if it wasn't for our tangents and our Butman talks and
we need to edit
that.
out all the Jimmy Savile stuff anyway. So
yes, and right now editing out this mention of Jimmy Savile.
No, I think we just have an episode with no Jimmy Savile mention, and then I mention this at the end, and they're like, "Where did Jamie say Jimmy Savile?"
And then they'll go back and listen to it again, and we'll get the extra ad revenue for them re-downloading it and listening to it. Yeah, I think it's a smart plan. We'll just do that from now on every episode.
So thanks very much for listening.
Yes, thank you on this weirder episode. I think definitely
it's been an odd day, hasn't it?
We've had a long old week. It's only Tuesday, but we've had a long week. And at least we know we can do things like this, and I think get a lot out of them. Still, that's the main thing.
It's been a fun time.
Sometimes we're gonna have to double up on recording, and I'm gonna have to double up on editing. So it's good to know we can get into the nitty gritty within an hour.
So thank you so much for listening.
Especially when I cut out all the bullshit. Anyway, and that's from both of us.
Thank you so much for listening.
I do just cut out your side entirely.
Yeah, I know. Fucking A.
It's just me talking to a wall every episode.
I listened to the recordings and I'm like, was I even...
I swear I was in this one.
Yeah,
Oh, you got to take it out of episode 5. From then on, you were just gone. We felt we were... I gave all your lines to Chat GBT. To an AI voiceover. Sorry, son, you've been made redundant. All right, take us home.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to find Ryan, at some point he'll make YouTube videos under the moniker Comic Stands.
Exactly.
I do things. I don't feel like promoting myself too much today. So have a wonderful evening and good night.
Email address?
It's Comic Literate Podcast.
comicliterate@gmail.com.
It's comicliterate@gmail.com.
I'm only quizzing you because one day you'll recall the information and then you'll have it locked in.
Well, you need to make me some flashcards.
To be fair, I email you from it every week.
Yeah, I know.
You're like, who is this again? Oh, you should put podcast in there. I know too many comic literates. Right. Thank you for listening. Have a good one. And
bye.
Thank you, Alan Moore.
Thank you to Alan Moore, as always.
Goodbye. Bye. 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 Bye.